Hello everyone, and welcome to this Diablo 3 dungeon guide for the Crusader, Thorns of the Invoker set. We'll be going over how to set up your character, and I'll also explain how to complete both primary dungeon objectives. Keep watching until the end to see a full playthrough of the entire set dungeon with additional tips. To get started, let's first take a look at the set bonuses so we'll know how to gear out our character. This set revolves around Thorns damage and is extremely simple to play. All you need to do is have Thorns damage on some of your gear pieces, and then attack with the Slash skill, which is a primary attack skill that we will use in our build, to apply the Thorns damage to enemies. One of the primary dungeon objectives requires use of the Iron Skin and Consecration skills to kill elite monsters, so you'll need to have these two skills available often to be able to use them. Therefore, considering all of this, cooldown reduction and toughness are the main priorities for the gearing and skills setup. In this setup, here are the recommended items. Thorns damage is a secondary property in gear pieces, and each piece of the Invoker set comes inherently with a Thorns damage roll. This should be a sufficient amount of Thorns damage, and you shouldn't have to reroll other gear pieces to obtain any additional Thorns damage. These items provide cooldown reduction, which will help ensure your Iron Skin and Consecration skills will be available for use when needed. Most of the remaining items provide a toughness benefit. Properties that normally increase your damage output that is listed on the character sheet are not helpful with this build, since it revolves around application of Thorns damage. So avoid typical properties like critical hit chance and critical hit damage, and opt instead for properties that provide additional toughness. And here are the skills. Both Iron Skin and Consecration are mandatory for the dungeon, required to complete one of the primary dungeon objectives. The Slash skill is required to apply Thorns damage via the 6-piece set bonus, and is the main damage dealing attack in the build. While the 4-piece set bonus offers a toughness bonus with the use of the Bombardment skill, Bombardment is not taken for this dungeon build. Bombardment can inadvertently kill off elite monsters prematurely when your Iron Skin and Consecration skills are not active yet, causing you to fail your dungeon attempt. The toughness bonuses offered by other items and skills will provide you with plenty of survivability, so the 4-piece set bonus won't be needed. Now let's go over the dungeon objectives. The first primary dungeon objective is to get hit by 75 spears thrown by Blood and Moon Clan enemies. There are many spearmen enemies scattered throughout the dungeon that will chuck spears at you repeatedly. To complete this objective, all you need to do is get hit by these spears. Naturally, you'll want to have sufficient toughness to be able to take several consecutive hits, but you should be able to complete this objective without much extra focus. Just by progressing through the dungeon normally, killing enemies along the way, you should get hit enough times naturally. When you encounter larger packs of monsters, try to prioritize the ghouls and warriors first, which will hit you with melee attacks. Try to kill these enemies off first to avoid taking unnecessary hits from them, while you let the spearmen attack and hit you with their spears. At some point midway through the dungeon, if you can isolate a small pack of 2 or 3 spearmen on their own, you may consider waiting to kill them off, and instead stand still while they hit you with spears so you can make some additional progress on this objective and ensure its completion. The second primary dungeon objective is to kill 5 elite monsters while standing in Consecration with Iron Skin active. To complete this objective, when you see an elite monster, you'll first activate Iron Skin, which has a 7-second duration. Then, run in to get close to the elite without attacking them. Then cast Consecration to put the area of effect on the ground, and then quickly hit the elite with Slash to kill them off. There are 5 total elites in the dungeon, and you will need to perform this cast sequence on each one of them. Be very mindful as you make progress through the dungeon, keeping an eye out for these elites. It is very easy to inadvertently hit and kill them, especially if you have high damage output. Try to avoid hitting enemies when elites are on the screen, as the 2-piece set bonus applies area damage around you. Also stay at range from elites until your 2 skills, Iron Skin and Consecration, are off cooldown and ready to be activated, to avoid the elites hitting you themselves and getting killed off from your Thorns damage. Reserve casting both Iron Skin and Consecration for this cast sequence. Do not use them at any other time. An elite monster can pop up at any moment, and you'll need these skills to be available. Next, let's take a look at the dungeon map. This dungeon has a relatively linear layout. I've broken the map up into 3 segments to ensure all the areas get covered. The elite monsters required for the second primary dungeon objective can be found anywhere in the dungeon, so there's no specific locations that you'll need to focus on. Just keep an eye out for these elites as you're moving through the dungeon to avoid hitting them prematurely. So now that you have the setup and you know how to approach the dungeon, let's head to it. Go to Act 1, then to the New Tristram waypoint. From there, head east out of the town area. Then head southwest. The dungeon entrance is just to the south of an overturned cart toward the end of the path. And next we'll look at the playthrough. For this run, I went with very bare bones gear to demonstrate techniques. Any additional items or stats that you get, consistent with the recommendations earlier, will give you a much easier time completing the dungeon. Once inside the dungeon, head out to the first group of monsters. There are no buffs with this build that you need to maintain. The playstyle for this build is extremely simple. All you need to do is attack with the Slash skill to kill off enemies. There is no grouping required or other skills that need to be used to deal damage. When you see an elite monster, cast Iron Skin, then get in close range with the elite. Then activate the concentration skill and hit them with Slash to kill them off. Before you engage the next elite, make sure the cooldowns for both Iron Skin and Consecration have expired and the skills are available to be used again. If you see another elite before they're ready, then back up and avoid dealing damage to enemies so you don't inadvertently kill the elite. You can use this time to take some hits from Spearmen while you wait. When the two skills are available again, go through your cast sequence and kill off the elite, and then continue attacking with Slash. You shouldn't need to focus too much on getting hit with spears. If you have too much Thorns damage, you might need to lower it if the Spearmen are dying too fast, as they may not stay alive long enough to be available to hit you with 75 total spears. Use Akarat's Champion and Laws of Hope when you are engaging with larger packs of monsters, where you might take several consecutive hits and could benefit from the extra toughness to avoid taking fatal damage. Segment number 1 of the dungeon map is complete, so now we head into segment number 2. Make sure the path to each elite is clear before activating your skills. There are some tight spots in the dungeon with very narrow hallways. You may need to back up and coax monsters out to a larger open area, or kill off smaller enemies before you can get close to the elites. Just be careful to not inadvertently damage the elites when you're not ready with your cast sequence. And there we completed the first primary dungeon objective, without significantly going out of our way to get hit by spears, so the playstyle remains the same, and we continue to keep an eye out for the elites. When you engage larger packs of monsters with mixed enemies, both melee and ranged, try to prioritize killing off the melee monsters first, and allow the ranged spearmen to hit you with spears. These are good moments to leverage Akarat's Champion and Laws of Hope for their toughness benefits. And here's the start of segment number 3 of the dungeon map. This section contains more narrow passageways, so be mindful of your pathways to get to elites. It is possible for elites to spawn very close to each other. If you find yourself waiting a long time for your cooldowns to expire, use Steed Charge to retreat a further distance back to wait until the skills are available again. And now we've completed both primary dungeon objectives, so all we need to do is clear out the remaining enemies. Continue attacking with the Slash skill to kill them off, and feel free to use any of your skills at will. It is not recommended to assign a follower for this dungeon, so they don't interfere with the elite monsters when you're trying to get close to them and within range of your consecration cast. Just a few monsters left. And we're done. Good luck trying to finish this one. If you enjoyed the guide and would like to see more content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.